Shalom Bracha. Bez Hashem. Last year we gave was on the Mitzvah from Mikvah. That was the first year in our new series. How all generations, how hard it was for Galus to be able to be kind the Mitzvah from Mikvah. Obviously not the man's Mikvah. We spoke about that in the end of the year also. But more the ladies' mikvah, there were places that they weren't able to go to the mikvah a whole winter. They had to break ice. Everyone knows how tzaddikim used to break ice to go to the mikvah. No one speaks about how the ladies used to break ice to go to the mikvah. And then how freezing it was in the places where it wasn't ice. It was still freezing. It was ice cold. And how dark it was and how scary it was and how unclean it was. And different things that came out because of that. And our generation, Baruch Hashem, was zeicha to have 5-star mikvahs. This week, Bez Hashem, I hope to start a 2-shirim series on the Mitzvah of Dalminim and Sukkah. Where Bez Hashem, we're heading towards the Yontif of Sukkot, and appropriate to talk about how the Dalminim was all along the Galus, and how the Mitzvah of Sukkah was all along the Galus, and how we obviously have it today's days, and most of these things are Mefurish, and you do them, Mefurish and Shulchan Aruch, these things you do, but it's good to go through it with some extra Marakamis, and take a look at it on a detailed, not just on a open color. Okay, so here we go. I would like to start off first with the famous Ramban. The Ramban speaks about the shivas of the mitzvah from Yishuv, the mitzvah from Yishuv Erets Yisroel. I'm sorry, the kiyum of mitzvahs in Erets Yisroel. And over there he speaks, and it says like this, famous words. He speaks about the Cheshivas of Israel, and this Indian is saying in Sefri, it says in the Pasuk, even though I'm going to make you go to Galus from Erets Yisroel, to go to Israel, you should be mitzvos means you should be recognized through mitzvahs. When you will return from Erets Yisroel, from Galus, it shouldn't be to you new. The Sefri says that while we're in Galus, we should do the mitzvahs, because like that, when we come back to Erets Yisroel, it shouldn't be to us new. And that's what it says in the Yermiyah says, ציונים, you should make yourself a simonim. And that's what it means to say is that we should keep on doing it like simonim. We shouldn't forget who we are, from where we're coming, and where we're going. That's the reason why we do the mitzvahs in Erets Yisroel. Was heißt? So the pasuk says, and we say in creation, it says, sometimes the very means we should do the Torah, we should keep the Torah on our hearts. Which means to say that we should keep it close, we shouldn't forget about it. Zok the Ramban, that the pasuk Eina Machai Begalus El B'Chavis Aguf Ketfilin Mezuzas. These psukim obviously are not going on Shemitah and Truma. All these things are not Machai, only in Erets Yisroel. When Machai and Galus, the Chavis Aguf, things have to do with our body, the Tefillin, Mezuzas. And what's the reason? The Sefri says, what's the reason that the Torah says that even in Galus, sometimes every time we say Krishna, we have to have in mind that in Galus, we're in Galus, that we have to do Torah mitzvahs, sometimes Zok the Ramban, that the Sefri explains what's the reason. Because when we come back to Erets Yisroel, it shouldn't be new. That's the whole tachlis in the mitzvahs in Galus. The tachlis and the purpose of all the mitzvahs is for the Yidden was there sitting in Erets Yisroel Lefnei Hashem, and that's why Zok the Ramban Erets Yisroel Shkulu Kaganeg Kol HaMitzvah Shabbat Torah. Why is it Yisroel Shkulu Kaganeg Mitzvah Torah? Because That's the whole point of the mitzvahs. That's where the mitzvahs are supposed to be in the sky. And the Rashba in Chuvas says the same thing. It goes through the whole thing. The Ramban, and his lashon is V'ikar mitzvahs ha-Torah kulam be'eretz, that ikar mitzvahs in the Torah, everything's in Eretz Yisrael. Ad ki kama mitzvahs in noyagas klal elu v'chatzoretz. Until that we don't even find mitzvahs that are not noyag, they're only noyag in Eretz Yisrael. So the Rashba says an interesting dik over here in the Rashba. The Rashba is saying that the Ikar mitzvahs are only in Eretz Yisrael. When we do mezuzah and tefillin, the Ikar is only in Eretz Yisrael. Ad kedei kach, that there's certain mitzvahs that are only in Eretz Yisrael. Means we are told today that the reason why Trumas and Ma'aser Shemitah is only in Eretz Yisrael is because that's our land. That's what we own. Hashem was maftiach this to Avraham Avinu. That's the land that we own. Sagt der Rashba is mavor nicht to say. The Rashba is mavor not because we own the land and that's our land. That's why Shemitah is only like this and Galus, Chal didn't own the land and that's why Hashem wasn't tzavit in Galus. That's not the reason. The reason, even on the Mitzvos of Be'arets, was also shaykh the idea of the Ikar mitzvahs. That's what the mitzvah is supposed to be. That's why those mitzvahs are only mechuyev in Eretz Yisrael. And not only those mitzvahs, even the mitzvahs Shabbat are also the Ikroi only in Eretz Yisrael. We do it in Galus only to remember who we are when we come back. And obviously, it needs explanation. What does that mean? That the mitzvahs of Galus are only of us to should be new when we come back to Eretz Yisrael. But that's what it says. It's steht in the Sifri, it's steht in the Ramban, the Rashba, and that's what we have to understand. The tachlis of the mitzvahs is in Eretz Yisrael. That's where you're supposed to do mitzvahs. And that's why we find that even the mitzvahs that are not totally beguf, that are minim, sukkah, mikvois, you name it, all these mitzvahs, as we'll see, Bez Hashem, are more matam in Eretz Yisrael than in Poland, than in Russia. In Russia and Poland, like we saw, by the mikvahs, it was so hard to go to the mikvah. It was frozen cold. It wasn't an appropriate place. That's not what Hashem wanted. You should go to the mikvah in Russia. That's not the idea. Hashem didn't give you the mitzvahs to do in Russia. Yes, once we went to Galus, so we have to do mitzvahs, even because it's not totally בארץ. But that wasn't the purpose. And that's why it's so hard to do the mitzvahs in Russia or in Poland or in wherever it is, because it's just not, that's not what the Torah was given for. That wasn't the purpose for us. Ikar mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem created Eretz Yisrael and gave the Torah for us to come in Eretz Yisrael. And that's why the Torah and Eretz Yisrael go together in a practical way. All the mitzvahs stem with Eretz Yisrael. The Yisroel Velitsky says like this. He goes with the Ramban, he's going to read it soon, but this idea that the Ikar mitzvahs are Eretz Yisrael, but derech klal yeshlo nadas, we have to understand, ki Ikar kiyum ha-Torah mitzvahs is dafka b'atzei nakdosh, Ikar kiyum ha-Torah mitzvahs is dafka in Eretz Yisrael, the kan eshev ez Hashem kiyum kol mitzvahs like mizvah hazeh. That's why all the mitzvahs we can be kiyum in Eretz Yisrael in mizvah hazeh. Kuroi min ha-mufchot, the best, and kol perteim, because we see b'chush, like kol asum sign kiyum mitzvahs adur. The whole mitzvahs in Israel helps us to be kind of mitzvahs b'hiderav. And we have to wake ourselves up from mitzvahs nashim l'moda. That it's deep. He says shel tzarenu v'aotzaros nishtarish went deep into us. We have to see our mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim. See, are we doing it now with the ability that we could do in Israel, or are we doing it like we were in Russia? Are we being makel the coolest that Galus are doing makel for Gedolah connected to go to the mikveh connected to Gedolah Rishonim like they did in Russia, or are we going to do it like we could do it with Kula Alma in Eretz Yisrael, Tachsa Shleimus? We have to be. He says that all the way that we were noig in Galus gets so stuck to us, it's hard to get away from it. But we have to reassess ourselves. Hashem gave us the Torah to be Mekayim in Eretz Yisrael. He says, the dogma hayala daslas battle kam be'aklam, is it someone dare to think that to be battle from the mitzvahs that it's easy to be kaim in Eretz Yisrael, like sleeping in the sukkah, he says, In Russia, you couldn't sleep in the sukkah because you were frozen. We'll talk about it as Hashem. You couldn't go in Poland, in these places, no one went in the sukkah because it was freezing cold. People might say nefesh, but most of the people living in the Israel were not the kind of mitzvahs sukkahs. So now in Erets Yisroel, Hashem gave us the Erets Yisroel to be kind of mitzvahs. Are we not going to do it? It's geschmack, it's good. He goes into Ner Chanukah. That's what his topic was. That Ner Chanukah in Galus, we weren't able to do because the skana we light it outside because it's skana from the goyim. And so there's no skana from goyim for lighting it outside. Hashem gave us the mitzvahs to kind of Eretz Yisroel. We should do it the right way. Then it brings down the Ramban that we spoke about, and he says the pasuk Vayidalam Atzas Goyim. Hashem gave us the Eretz Yisroel, the land from the goyim. And all their va'amal u'man yirshu, the Eibishter gave us their amal. They worked hard on the land of Israel, and we were yerishu from them, from the goyim, when Yeshua came into Eretz Yisroel. Why? Ba'avi yishmeru chukov tereisav yintzoru. That we should do Torah mitzvahs, and that is the whole point of it. Not only Trumas and Ma'asos and Shvius, even the regular. He says like Shabbos. In different places, Shabbos was very late, or extremely late, right? And the month of Shabbos is very late. In Erets Yisroel, it's normal timing. In the summer, it's not all the times of the year, it's all normal timing. And the same thing he says with the Sikim, and Netzachama, and Tzevzman Krishma in the summer, and the Tzevzman Tainis in the summer. It's not late. People are not starving until 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know, whatever it is, so late. It's normal timing. People live normal. Yes, we have to fast, but it wasn't made to fast until 12 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, or 10 o'clock at night. And then so it doesn't get light so late. And he says, the sukkah we spoke about, and he says, when you cut the matzos, it's not raining. And so on, all the different mitzvahs that it's more that we can carry the Zman for Krishna is not so early. It's not so, and all these mitzvahs are appropriate. They fit for Eretz Yisroel. It fits like a glove. The Torah and Eretz Yisroel are best friends. There's a shalom bias with Torah and Eretz Yisroel. There's a shalom bias in Galus. There's a machlokes between the Torah and Russia. There's a machlokes between the Torah and Germany. There's a machlokes between the Torah and Hungary. It doesn't stim with everything. Some places it's worse, some places it's better, but it doesn't stim. It doesn't fit like a glove. The Torah and Eretz Yisroel fit like a glove. And that's what we're talking about. We're looking in, and that's what the Ramban says. Or Ramban, we spoke about this, Varichis. The Ramban says that that the Torah, that the whole idea from Galus and Geula was all about, is all about being kind of Torah and mitzvahs, all about that in times of the Geula, you have the ability to do Torah and mitzvahs. In times of Galus, you've been as battle for mitzvahs, and not only mitzvahs from Erets Yisroel, even mitzvahs from Shavakov. It's much harder to Mekayim, and that is the Tachlis and Galus. Because we did Averis, we weren't able to do mitzvahs. Now that Hashem gave us the opportunity to do mitzvahs, that means Hashem is being goylos, because that's the Ramban we spoke. It's the Tachlis and the Geula. And that's the Tachlis and Erets Yisroel, to do Torah and mitzvahs, and that is the biggest. That's the biggest kasher with Hashem, is that we could actually do Torah and mitzvahs. There's nothing like that. Now, so when I bring up a topic, a lot of times people say, well, what are you saying? Well, what are you saying? You know, the Ramban, they were all much bigger than us. Shema was much bigger than us. They did Torah mitzvahs. How can they say today, the small generation, we do Torah mitzvahs? Yeah, fine. We could do Talminim, we could do Esrog, Mikvah, whatever it is. Where all the mitzvahs, we'll see what we could do, what they weren't able to do. And they could do now. Okay, fine, but the Ramban were much closer. They're much more Havas Hashem. They were much. So what are you trying to say that we have Geula? They were closer. That's Geula. And you know what the answer is? It's not true. What is true is that the Rambam and the Ramban, the Goyin and the Baal Shem Tov were much bigger than us. We don't come on to them. But Mashal Amal Hadavadana. What is the mashal to what we're talking about? The mashal to what we're talking about is that you have a couple in the house. the shalom bayis is not good. And because the shalom bayis is not good, they both live in separate rooms. And they're working so hard on the shalom bayis. They said, until we make up shalom bayis, we're not going to sleep together. There won't be yishikaim mishikas piyu. Kitovim the dechem yayin, like we spoke about the first year. And they're also trying. They're going to marriage council and they're working on it. And they're dying to be with each other. They're dying to eat together at the dining room table. And what happens? They're still in different rooms. Until that day that comes, that they live together in the same room, the same dining room. And that is the biggest kirah. The Ramban, the old Tzaddik Hadoros, the Goy, the Baal Shem Tov, the Kotzker Rebbe, the Telzer Rav, they all were dying to do the Hashem's Ratzon. They were bursting from love to Hashem. But they didn't have opportunity to do the mitzvahs like we have. They were in a different room, from the Rebbe Shalom. Being in Hashem's room, that is the opportunity to do Torah mitzvahs. That is what living together with Hashem means, the opportunity to do mitzvahs. So yes, all long generations, they had bigger madregas, and they were more at heart, they were dying for Hashem. But you know what they were dying for? They were dying for the opportunity to do Torah and mitzvahs. That's what they were dying for. That's what they were dying for. They said to Rabba, they said to Bein Abino, they should do all Torah and mitzvahs, take us to Erets Yisroel to do Torah and mitzvahs. That's what they were dying for. But they didn't have the opportunity. They were in a different room from everybody in the Shalom. They were not in the chuppah. They didn't have the Torah and mitzvahs. That is the biggest kirva possible. Yes, we're a much smaller madrega, but the Rebbe Shalom gave us back so many mitzvahs. The Rebbe Shalom is taking us back into the chuppah room. The Rebbe Shalom is taking us back into the yichud room. The Rebbe Shalom is taking us back into his house. Until now, the Gedolim were all chutz la'aretz, and even those that were in Erets Yisroel, they were all by themselves, so it wasn't considered they were in Erets Yisroel. Galus was returning to Erets Yisroel. Even Galus and Galus is doing all the Torah and mitzvahs. We have our representatives in Erets Yisroel. That's where we belong, and that's what Galus is. That's how we see ourselves. We're just here until Be'ez Hashem we go there, but that's the Mitzvos of Galus is returning. But more than that, we're focusing now, not even focusing on Erets Yisroel now, we're focusing now on the ability to Torah and mitzvahs. And the Galus and the Gula. And that's what the Rambam and the Rashba and Baal Shem Tov and the Goy were dying for. To be with Hashem in the same room. Famous word from the Baal Shem Tov, that he knew all the kavanas of tefillah. After everything, when it came to daven, his main madrega was like a pashtik child. He davened to Hashem. He had the schus to daven to Hashem. Famous word from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was dying to do dal minim kalacha. As we'll see, that they didn't have the opportunity to do dal minim kalacha. The guy was dying to do the dal minim kalacha. And all the Sfada Shekhadim were dying to do all the mitzvahs kalacha. You see the Svarim, we spoke about Ben Shchai, about the different things we saw about the Kvois. It was hard for them also. They were dying to do the mitzvahs the way you think, like a pashta person. Just to give me those mitzvahs, bring me back in your room. And that's what Galus is about. So I just want to add another marker for this Ramban, address this, because it's going to come, because we still didn't speak about the idea that why in Galus is it a zecher for mitzvahs. It's only a simon for mitzvahs. When we come back, I want to add to that also, but this is a new marker I'm going to speak out, and this is what I'm going to point out, behemshich to our Nyonim, what we spoke about.